Let's take a look at today's newspapers, and we're joined by founding partner of DKO, Koos de Keijzer. Koos, nice to see you this morning, and welcome to your first newspaper review.
Nice to be here, Virginia.
You've come in on Easter Monday, which is very good of you to give up your time.
Thank you very much.
Now, what are the stories you've selected for us today? Your first one's from the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald. What's this about?
Yes, it's interesting how the population increase and the housing crisis is actually reported across Australia. And this is a story about people actually moving out of Sydney and going to rural New South Wales to actually live. And it's reported in a slightly negative way. And the nice kind of backstory is that country New South Wales and country Victoria are actually growing. And it's been the first time for many, many years that they're growing. And a lot of young kids are actually moving out of capital cities and moving out to the country, which is making these little towns a lot more vibrant than what they used to be.
Negative in the sense of what the writer speaks about country towns perhaps not having the glamour or the big lights in the big city?
Negative in the terms of not having the correct choices in the big cities.
Okay.
But moving out to a country is a fabulous lifestyle choice.
Well, look, a lot of people have been making that point. We know the Deputy Prime Minister, Barnaby Joyce, is a big exponent of it. The argument's always been, though, Koos, that the jobs out there, you know, that it might be sort of a nice lifestyle, but whether you can find employment is sort of the challenge too.
Well, it's interesting, and it's a bit of a two-way street. Certainly in Victoria, you've got a city like Bendigo where the government has spent a lot of money on a hospital and on some major facilities there that have really increased the actual amount of employment there. And also with a fast train link between Melbourne and Bendigo, people can actually live in the country and now work in a city. So that kind of issue can actually be handled by providing jobs in the country, but probably most importantly by providing good infrastructural links back to Sydney and Melbourne.
Jobs infrastructure, it's an issue of course for the hinterland of Brisbane, Adelaide, it applies to every one of our big cities. Now lots of people travel on this Easter weekend, so you very helpfully have chosen a couple of stories about airlines.
Yes,
doing good and bad things.
Yes, and we all travel. And it's interesting how in America, which is the country that invented mass transportation, how it's falling apart. And this story that happened last week, which was such an appalling story, the share price of United Airlines dropped to $1 billion overnight, and the chairman just got it wrong. And it's interesting placing that story against a story about Virgin Australia, where they're actually still looking at passenger enhancements and trying to make air travel better. So from that point of view, as Australians, we're actually really lucky travelling with the airlines that we do compared to airlines in North America.
Well, highly competitive, and it is interesting, as you say, to see those that are really focusing on, you know, how do we get consumers to click on ours as opposed to the other airline when we have such a massive choice. And that's where their passenger focus is versus the United Nations PR disaster. You reckon that airline...
United Airlines.
Sorry, United... and United Nations from time to time. Disasters too. United Airlines. Do you reckon they'll recover from that?
Oh, look, I think they will, but I think the sheer fact that their share price dropped by $1 billion, it means it's a king hit. And crisis management, what the chairman said about the passenger taking off, they just handled it wrong.
So badly.
And it's just kind of, it got worse.
I'm just interested, other than not being dragged off feet first, what are the enhancements Virgin's talking about? Like more leg room, stuff like that, better food?
Quite rightly what they're talking about, and I'm a big bloke, they're actually talking about more leg room. They're now talking about an X class that sits between business class and economy class. So they're actually talking about issues that are important for passenger comfort.
Right. You're an exit row chap?
Yes, I am. I love my exit row.
Join the club, my friend.
Let's have a look at this story on page 9 of the Herald Sun. This is really interesting, and it's happening more and more in big cities as well. Tell us about this Sky High student story.
Well, this is a story about a really prominent site, the Toyota site in Melbourne. And why I picked this story is that it's not just about students, it's about creating a diverse community. This is a development where there will be a lot of students being close to Melbourne and close to RMIT, but there'll also be apartments, there'll also be offices, and there'll be a whole mix of facilities on offer. And it's that kind of diversity of city blocks that I think is really interesting. The story also talks about laneways and about a major through-site link down at the ground floor, which is a really good thing for Melbourne.
Well, it's interesting, and all major cities are going to have to grapple with this one. You can't just whack up the apartment block of, you know, rabbit warren apartments now. You have to talk about building a community, because there's just so little shared public space that if you can't figure it out within the footprint of the building, well then I don't reckon you should be given the permit.
Exactly, and I think, as we've spoken about before, it's those laneways. It's what happens at street level, at road level, that's actually really important.
And that's been the revival of so many cities around the country where they've got that right. Newcastle, Brisbane, other places as well.
Exactly.
Let's go to the Australian. We have a story there from Indonesia on a political battle.
Well, I'm always interested. Indonesia is our closest neighbour. Jakarta is a very, very big city. The incumbent mayor, Ahok, has been running for quite some time. It's obvious that he's done some really good work in Jakarta. He's actually facilitated major changes through the city. And it's interesting looking at the actual difficulty that he's in getting re-elected. It's a fairly complex electoral process, and intriguing thing again is that Ahok is a Christian. He's actually not Muslim.
So is it prejudice that's being forked out to him?
I think there's some of that, but I think it's also just sheer politics. Indonesia is a democracy, and it's interesting seeing how certainly the religion card is being played, and but there's no doubt about it that Ahok's done a fabulous job in the last 6 years, and it'll be interesting seeing who actually becomes mayor.
Well, indeed.
Let's have a look at your final story, and thank you so much for bringing us a croc story on this Easter Monday. We think it's appropriate.
Well, being a Dutchman, I kind of love living in a country where the front page of the newspaper has the mouth of a crocodile. and
that's really all you want to talk about, right?
Exactly.
It's about a cull. Are you in support of the cull, the croc cull?
Oh, look, allegedly, the crocodile numbers have tripled in the last 4 years, I think. So allegedly in Northern Australia there is a bit of a crocodile crisis, and so culling would actually be a good thing. I think the kind of preposition here is that they're going to be wealthy overseas tourists come in and bag a croc. So
I'm intrigued. You talk about being a Dutchman. What's the most dangerous thing in Holland, do you reckon? You know, we don't have there's no crocs.
Water, I would imagine.
Rogue windmills.
Yeah,
flying clogs.
I think a dike breaking.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah. The inundation of water is the constant threat.
Water's a persistent thing.
But there are no sharks in it, as far as you know, anyway.
No.
Imagine Sharknado in Holland.
There you go.
Across the crops. Hey, great to have you on board. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.